Hey, welcome to the channel. We hope that you enjoy today's stories and check out the chapters on the video to see all the stories for today. But before we get into this video, subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon to get notified when we release a new video. So let's get into the video.
Did you experience anything unexplainable or magical as a child?
Experience 1. I was 10 years old or so when I experienced this. On a sunny afternoon in school, while trying to catch dragonflies, I looked up at the skies and saw an outline of a very big planet looming above in the skies. It was very big. It was faint looking, but it just sat there naturally. I remembered thinking it must be some kind of space phenomenon like the likes of solar eclipse. Anyway, I recently tried to search about it when I was older upon remembering it, turning 20 this year, but found no such thing ever happened or that it was even possible. Experience 2. I was 11, on a vacation tour type of thing with my family from Mexico. We went to Spain, and then Jerusalem. I remember sitting on some concrete and I must have sat on a bee, spider, or something because I felt this horrible stinging in my thigh and it started getting all red. We kept walking to our next destination, which happened to be the Jordan River. Now at this time, I wasn't religious at all. I would say as an adult I'm spiritual, but I never grew up religious because I was separated from my Mexican family and living in America since a baby. My leg was hurting badly, and I was sulking while everyone was enjoying the moment. My grandma told me to get in the water, so I did, and once I got out a few minutes later the pain and redness were completely gone. As I said, I was not religious, so this day kind of opened some new thinking for me. For those that don't know, the Jordan River is where Jesus Christ was supposedly baptized. My grandma was convinced it was pure magic that day. It could have been the water properties that healed it, but it honestly felt magical to me too. Experience 3. When I was probably 16, I know it's not a kid's age per se, I was getting out of my car after school. When I got out of my car, a car that I did not know, nor did they live in my neighborhood, started driving very slowly. They got even slower when they got near me. Where I was parked, I had to cross the road to get to my house, or I would have already been hightailing it. I already came to the conclusion that I was about to have to fight for my life. The guys looked like they were up to no good, their faces and car will forever be burned in my memory. Well, they suddenly looked at me terrified and sped off. I was confused. I looked beside me, and I had 2 Rottweilers on either side of me. With how close they were to me, you could have sworn they were mine. I'm a huge animal lover, so I know almost all the animals that were on our street. No one owned 1 Rottweiler, let alone 2. They walked me up to my door and sat outside my door for a minute or 2 to make sure I got inside safely. They never tried to come in the door. They just sat at the entrance of my door. They never growled or made a peep. They just followed on either side of me. I never saw them after that. I don't know who or what was looking out for me that day, but I'll forever be grateful. Experience 4. When I was probably 9, I'm 26 now, me and my cousin were at my grandma's playing in our playroom. We were the only ones there, but everyone else was just next door at my great-grandparents' house. The room we were in had those door beads hanging on them, and I remember just playing around with some dolls. I looked up and saw a woman through the beads walking down the hallway. I never saw her face, but she had a small frame, was wearing light blue jeans, a black sweater, and had a cigarette in her hand. I thought it was my grandma because she was about the same size, and she smoked. I said something thinking it was her, but she didn't respond. My cousin didn't see anything, so I told him what I saw, and we searched the house and didn't find her. At this point, we were both freaked out and we ran next door. My grandma was there smoking, but she was wearing a black t-shirt and black pants. We asked if she was just at the house, and she said no, so I explained what I saw, and her response was, "Oh, don't worry about it. There aren't any evil spirits in the house." So, I and my cousin decided to stay with my great-grandparents for the rest of the day, lol. Experience 5. When I was a child, I was playing soccer with some friends from the neighborhood when one of us threw the ball onto a nearby roof. We went upstairs to retrieve it and one of us found a creature. At first, we thought it was a bat since it was so similar. Small, with wings and fur, but the strange thing is that it had a humanoid face. Similar to how imps are drawn in medieval books. The creature seemed to be injured or sick but was alive and babbling and swearing in a strange voice. One of the bigger boys kicked him away into the brush and that was it. I still remember the face and voice of that strange being. Experience 6. Every year I was able to predict who my siblings' new teachers would be. I was the oldest, so I knew each teacher very well. I'd get the guess right every time. It was a feeling and energy match that I based it on. I'd warn my siblings about the positives/negatives of each teacher based on these predictions. I would predict whom their teacher was going to be correct every year until we moved to a different state. Experience 7. When I was a teenager, I was walking to meet up with some friends across a field between a long-defunct seminary, which has been converted into a lodge, and the forest about 600 or so feet away. About halfway through the field, my hood got pulled off my head. Instinct told me someone pulled it down, but no one was anywhere in sight. There wasn't any wind, and I was hundreds of feet from any kind of vegetation or branch that could have caught it. An owl might have done it, but I imagine I'd be aware of an owl flying towards me because if it came from the back or sides, it would only shift the hood, not remove it from my head. I can't make sense of it, and now 20 years afterwards, I still wonder how it happened, and I suppose I may never know. Experience 8. I remember vividly being in elementary school, probably GR 3 or 4. It was after hours before dusk. It was meet the teacher night, and I was the first student there. I went outside and opened the door to the area where we would play for recess. There was a big forest and a small forest on opposite sides of a big field with a racetrack. It was a warm September evening. I remember a strong gust of wind and watching the trees sway. In the wind, I heard my name being called slowly but echoing in a low tone, almost like it was beckoning me to come to play in the forest alone. It scared the F out of me, and I remember running inside back to find my parents. Experience 9. I remember playing in my backyard with a huge rally-poly. Potato bug? Whatever you call them, I found one. I remember it being about the size of half of my hand. His antenna stuck out really far, and I played with it for what felt like hours. My mom called me in for dinner, so I left him in the bush in my fenced backyard thinking I could come back and find it. Never saw anything like it ever again.
Do you like listening to these stories? Do you want to hear more of them? Then click that like button, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. And check the description for links to more videos and interesting stories.
Experience 10. When I was about 3 years old, I was in an old church with my grandma and mom. They both saw me speak to a statue of a saint, but in my eyes, I spoke to an actual person. I remember them as a person, with a very calming, gentle, male-sounding voice, telling me to come towards him. He put his arms out with a gentle "come here" gesture and playfully said, "Come here, give me your bag." I was carrying my favorite backpack at the time and told my mom and grandma, "Mummy, he wants my bag. He wants my bag." I cannot recall his visual features. I just knew at that moment I wasn't hallucinating, but I remembered it as me talking to an ordinary person. My mother told me the statue actually had a pose that looked like the gesture I described, with his arms sticking out. Experience 11. There was a print of my mom's painting on the wall of our front room. It was of a smiling woman wearing a sun hat and holding a basket of flowers. She was in a yard with a house in the background and a trail leading into the forest to the left side of the painting. I remember my sisters, and I used to watch her because she'd smile, and the wind would blow in the painting. We were all very young, preschool aged. One day she wasn't smiling, she looked sad and scared. I was the only one in the room at the time, and I remember feeling very sad for her. She dropped her basket and ran off into the woods, leaving behind only her basket and the sun hat, which flew off her hair as she ran. Our mother said there was never a woman in the painting, but we all remember her with her reddish hair and her white dress, and the purple ribbon tied around her waist. Experience 12. I and a group of friends saw a ghost floating near where we were playing football. She sorts of shimmered and had a blue tint to the light. We all saw it and we all legged it out of instinct, but if I could go back to that day, I'd have gone to investigate further and see what or who it was. Experience 13. I have memories of commonly waking up under the bed from ages 4 to 7. I was also known to be a very light sleeper, waking up whenever the door opened or anyone walked into my room. A lot of mornings I remember waking up and being dragged by my mother from under the bed. I've also seen what we call little people around here. I've lived on the res during those times. Experience 14. Yes. When I was 3, my older sister died of cancer at home. My parents never talked about what happened that night when she died. I have a vivid memory of waking up at 3 a.m. and walking from my bedroom to the front room. I saw what I thought was the ice cream man, a man dressed in white pants and a white shirt, driving a white ambulance-type van. He pulled up in front of the house and took her away on a stretcher. I remember my father and mother hugging each other and crying. I tried to get their attention to ask what happened, but it was like I was invisible. I asked my dad when I was in my late 20s, and he told me that I never woke up that night. He says they told me my sister went to heaven, that's all. I told him what I remembered, and he said that is exactly what happened, but it was the coroner's van that took her body. He said he checked on me in my room that night and I was fast asleep. I think it may have been me astral projecting so that I could say goodbye. Experience 15. I had a reoccurring dream as a child that I would climb out of my bedroom window and go flying up and down the street. I would look at all the neighbors' rooftops and gardens and enjoy it so much. It was so vivid I would feel the physical sensations of swooping and soaring. One night, I was about to climb out the window and someone grabbed my arm. They were in shadow, I couldn't see them at all, but they didn't feel malevolent. They told me that I shouldn't do this anymore and it's not safe. I went back to bed and never had that dream again. Experience 16. When I was 5, I started to have these weird dreams where I would be sitting in my bed playing with these wooden blocks, didn't have any in real life. Every time I would finish building a castle, a man would jump on my bed and knock them down. I would wake up to my bed still bouncing. I would cry and my mom would come to comfort me and say typical parent stuff to calm me down. "It's just a dream," she would say often. This happened on a nightly basis. One night, it was different. In the dream, the blocks were painted different colors. That had never happened before, they were always plain wood. I had a bad feeling and became kind of aware that something was wrong. Woke up in the same manner with the bed bouncing and crying for my mom. She didn't come this time. All of a sudden, something started to pull my bed covers down to the floor. I was frozen in fear. Then it grabbed my foot and started to pull. I yanked myself off my bed to the floor and grabbed onto the bars of the bed with all my strength as it was pulling me under my bed. It felt like hours. All of a sudden it let go. I ran to my parents' room in complete terror. I scared my parents that night so badly that they called the local priest to come to say a blessing. It never happened again. Experience 17. Pre 5 years old, don't know exactly, but it was before my sister was born, so 5 or under. There was a man floating in the corner of my room talking to me, keeping me awake. So, I walked into my parents' bedroom to let them know. Told my mom that the barber man wasn't letting me sleep. My father had passed away when I was 1 and my mom had remarried. My father's last name was Hoff. My new father's last name is Gallo. My mom's maiden name was Barber. My grandfather, who passed before I was born, was keeping me awake. Experience 18. When I was a kid, I regularly talked to people no one else could see. My best friend lived across the road. I remember spending hours playing with her. I remember playing slip and slide on her porch, and I remember the tree painted on her bedroom wall. Until the day she died, my mom swore we never had a neighbor, and she never let me spend hours at someone else's house as a little kid. If anyone remembers the episode of Buffy with the gentleman, where they all lost their voices? Yeah, the first time I saw that episode 1 freaked the heck out because I had seen those men or something like them when I was a kid at freaking Kmart of all places. Now when I notice people in public that no one else is paying attention to, I nope off in the other direction. Experience 19. After having some weird things happening lately, I was having a conversation with my brother today about this kind of stuff. We both have a memory from when I was 5 and he was 6, and we both remember it exactly the same, and there's no good explanation for it. My brother could hear a scary man yelling at him in the bathroom of our house. I remember walking in, and he was hysterical, covering his ears and crying, saying the man was saying bad things. My mom was in there trying to console him and figure out what was wrong. She kept saying there was no one yelling. I could hear it too though, this disembodied deep scary voice. I don't remember what it was saying, but I know it was bad things. I could hear it too, only in the bathroom. It seemed to be coming from the ceiling. I told my mom I heard it too, and she got angry at me and said to stop scaring my brother. She thought I was just lying to go along with it. But I remember it to this day. There was a voice. But only me and my brother could hear it. We both still remember it.
We hope you enjoyed listening to today's stories. If you want to see more stories, check out these videos or check the links in the description for more videos. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And ring that notification bell.